Jessie.
Okay, so we'll just begin. So hi everyone. Thank you for taking time to come to this webinar. I'd like to thank the speakers for taking time off their busy schedules also, and thank the participants for joining this. Okay, so next slide. Okay, so Mandy and I come from InTech, and basically we are a group of students who are interested to promote tech engagement amongst youth. Okay, so we will have Toshal to share about WW Code also.
Thank you, Jessie. So Women Who Code is actually a non-profit organization that provides services for women who are pursuing tech and provides a community for women who are starting their careers or in the middle of their careers to actually find some support and mentorship and network with different people and excel in their tech careers. So we stand with a vision to inspire women to excel in their tech careers. And we have a vision to see a world where women are representatives as technical executives, founders, VCs, board members, software engineers.
Okay, so we'll move on to introduce our three speakers for today. So first up, we have Toshal. Okay, so she was from Nagpur, India, where she did her computer science and engineering degree. And then she came to Singapore to NUS to do her master's. So currently she's an AI engineer at Loreto.io, which is a startup in property management and surveillance AI space. And she's also the co-director of WW Code. Yeah. So the next speaker would be Kriti. So she was from Chennai, India, and she holds a bachelor degree in electronics and communication engineering. So in India, she worked as a software developer for almost a year at Siemens Technology and Services. Then thereafter, she moved to Singapore to pursue a master's in electrical and computer engineering at NUS. She worked at Micron for 9 months, and currently she works at HP as a system integration and validation engineer. Yeah, and the last speaker is Rachel. So she used to work in the finance industry, I guess, is under the risk and compliance career. So because she was driven by the desire to create digital solutions and building communities, she started pursuing a career in the tech industry. And she is a quality assurance manager at she used to work at Howdy. And then she joins SP Digital as a software engineer. And she has shared her experiences at many tech meetups, yeah, to encourage others to seize the opportunity to enter the tech industry. Okay. So now we'll have Mandy to introduce to you how keynote discussion would work.
Yeah. So just before that, if you see the QR code at the bottom left of the screen, right, in the next few slides we'll also have that. That is, if you have any questions that maybe you don't want to unmute and say, so you can also put it in the Mentimeter, like by scanning the QR code. Right, so that's that. So this webinar will have 2 segments. This is one is keynote discussion. The next segment is just general Q&A. So keynote discussion, we will flash a statement or a question on screen, and the speakers can give their opinions or insights on it. Yeah, and for one of the questions, we also have a poll where audiences can put in their we'll ask a question that audiences can answer. Yeah. Okay, let's get started with keynote discussion. So the first one is I need to study an IT-related degree in university to enter the industry. So I think because we have speakers, some who did pursue an IT-related degree and some who didn't, we can get different perspectives on this.
Okay, apologies. Before we begin, I'll just like to add that each keynote question would take about 6 to 7 minutes. So we have 3 keynote discussions in total. Yeah.
Maybe I can go first and then the other speakers can follow. Is that okay?
Yeah, sure.
So I don't entirely agree with this statement. Okay, this is my personal opinion, and I would say that whatever I'm going to, whatever thoughts that I'm sharing today are my personal opinion. So if someone feels otherwise, I'm really sorry about that. So IT related degree is generally computer science or electrical engineering or related ones. And today, to work in an IT industry, you just need some basic coding knowledge and some domain knowledge with whatever field that you want to work in. And you can get those resources by not studying an IT related degree and doing some online courses as well. So there's so much information available out there to actually help you get acquainted to whatever tech industry that you want to join. But having an IT related degree does help you build a strong basics. So it's actually upon you if you want to have a multidisciplinary background, having like a dual degree, or having pursuing your own personal interest and then having some coding skills as a hobby. It's totally upon you.
Thank you, Toshal, for sharing. Maybe I can go next. So yeah, as Toshal mentioned, whatever we're sharing today is from our personal experiences. And in case you think differently, that's great. But yeah, please don't hold whatever we say as the final truth. But yeah, so adding on to what Toshal said, right, that you don't necessarily need an IT-related degree, but it is good to have one. I'll just like to add another perspective to that. It really depends on the kind of career you're looking for. So entering the tech industry, right, is not just really about coding, right? It is about a lot of other things. You can, if you're interested in designing and graphics, then you can look for a career in UI UX as well. And UI UX is actually growing quite a lot. And if the audience is not familiar about UI UX, it's mostly about designing and how a website is going to look or how a product is going to look and where do you want to have options for different things on a website. So UI UX is mostly about that. It's about designing. So with that as well, you can have a career in tech industry. Okay, then there's QA as well. So QA, yes, you may need some knowledge, but again, it depends on which QA you want to be a part of. If you want to be a part of software QA, then yes. I guess we'll cover more about QA later, but again, it really depends what your interest is. If your interest is coding, then yes, definitely a degree would help. If not, courses somewhere outside. But if your focus is something else, if it's about project management or product management, or like I mentioned, UI, UX, it's not necessary for you to have an IT-related degree. Yeah, I guess, yeah, that's what I'd like to say.
Thank you, Tasha and Kriti, for sharing. Rachel, do you have anything you want to add on for this statement?
So I think it's like, as mentioned earlier in my bio, I did not study an IT-related degree. I actually studied banking finance in poly as well as in university, and then after that, I changed career to the IT industry. And so my answer to this would be no. But I think it really depends on the individual, because I think ultimately you should study what you are interested in, and not just study something just because it is popular now and you see a lot of people earning money. Because when I chose to study banking finance, during that time, the banking industry was doing very well. So this was like something that was, for me, I chose it because I thought the industry is doing well, I'll probably get a good job. And for me, shortly after I started a course in Polytechnic, the financial crisis hit, and then the industry kind of went downhill. So the banking industry has recovered, but I learned a very important lesson, that you should not choose to study something just because at the moment as very good career prospects, but you should study something that you have a strong interest in. So if you enjoy programming, I think an IT related degree is great. If you are someone who is interested in tech, but maybe you're not as keen to learn coding, you can study other degrees, and then you can find so-called tech-like careers in the IT industry. So like what Kriti and Toshal have mentioned, there's UI UX design, there's like product management, project management, there's also like developer relations and like community management, and a lot of other like business development that is specific to the IT industry. So these are tech-like careers in the tech industry that you don't necessarily need an IT related degree to enter.
Okay, thank you all three speakers for sharing. I think a lot of people assume that you kind of need an IT related degree in order to go into the tech industry, but it seems like it may not always be the case. Yeah. Okay, so we'll move on to the next keynote discussion. For this one, we can have the participants, maybe if you want to just unmute and say for convenience sake, you can. But the question we want to ask is, what do the participants think are important to consider when you want to decide to pursue IT? I think because all of us are maybe in JC or tertiary education already, so we will probably have some things that are in our minds. I think participants, if you want to just unmute and say here, that's fine as well. Anyone? Oh, did you guys already go to the Mentimeter? Just to check. Okay, I'll assume you went to the Mentimeter, so let me stop sharing and go over to that. Does anyone need the link to the Mentimeter? I'll just paste it. Oh, send. Oh, okay. Sorry, I pronounced the name wrongly just now. Let me see. Everyone can answer. Oh, okay. I see some responses coming in. Let me just share that. Okay. I think for the panelists, if you see anything you want to address, you can go ahead. Yeah.
Okay, I think maybe I'll go first. So I see pay is important to consider. So it's like that's for me, it's a lesson I learned is do not pursue a career simply because of the pay, because I think money, yes, money is important, but I think ultimately in the long run, money is not going to be a factor that will help you with certain more like qualitative things like job satisfaction, your own like mental health, your own physical health. So it's like, if let's say you're pursuing a career because it pays well, but the hours are long, you don't enjoy your work, you're probably not going to last very long. I myself, I've experienced burnout in my career, in some of my past jobs before, and it's not a nice feeling to when you're very, very burnt out from work. So I think pay is should be an important factor, but it's not the most important factor. As for like career prospects and growth in the industry, I think these are great things to consider. But I think also it's like being able to be versatile and tackling what's in the future is even more important, I think. So because the tech industry is like moving and changing very fast. So I think being very agile in terms of your career is a lot more important, I think.
Hey, thank you for sharing, Rachel. Those are quite interesting points that I wouldn't have considered myself. For Toshal and Kriti, do you guys want to add on anything?
Maybe I can go next. Thank you, Rachel, for sharing. And I fully agree with what she's just spoken. Pay is important, but you guys, most of you guys are still young, right? This is mostly going to be your first job if you decide to pursue job. So the taste of money is going to look amazing at first. So you wouldn't really think about the work culture and your mental well-being that much. I mean, I'm saying that because I'm sure the three of us have been there, because this is not really our first year or our first job, but it's very important that you like where you work. And if you don't like where you work, no matter how amazing the industry is, you are not going to grow. No matter how amazing your company is, you won't be able to grow because you don't like the work culture there. It's happened to me too when I was working, and it was very difficult for me to actually make it to work. So I started looking out for other opportunities and stuff. So do keep that in mind when you're going for your interviews. Try to learn a bit more about the culture, not just the pay. Try to learn about the role, try to learn about the culture, about, to talk to different people in the same company, reach out to them on LinkedIn and ask them how they really feel about the culture there, because it's super important. Another thing, I see a lot of questions about, so environment. Environment is cutthroat or not? Well, the tech industry is rapidly growing, as you see, right? Today you have something and tomorrow it's like completely changed and it's replaced by something else. So tech in itself is very versatile. So like Rachel mentioned, you should be really agile. You should be able to learn new things. Let's say today you know a coding language and you're like, this is Python is all great right now. It's all, you use it everywhere, but you need to be able to learn in a tech industry. That is very important. You have to have that thing of learning and growing because it keeps changing. So yes, all of those who have said things about like growth and personal interest and prospects, it's amazing because it's growing very rapidly. And there is something about personal strengths, whether the nature of tech job would suit my personality and career. That's actually a really great way to look at it. That when you're looking for a job, yes, you see if this is something that would suit you, because sometimes sometimes there are two kinds of companies, right? There's startups and then there's big tech. But big tech is very structured, very organized. You have your roles and responsibilities properly defined. But then you work in a startup. So in some startups, yes, you may have roles and responsibilities defined, but some of them are very, very flexible, right? You have your options to explore a lot of other things just than what you were hired to do. So now that depends on you, which kind of a person you are. Do you like that you have a very structured responsibility, or do you like to do a bit of everything? I think Toshal can talk more on that since she works for a startup. But yeah, so before you take up a job offer, right, I would say, just don't look at pay, look at everything else. Because even the place you work for, it has a huge role in your growth. Some companies are actually focused on employee growth, whereas some of them just want to get their work done. So yeah, look at all of these things, because as you guys have mentioned, all of these things are very important before you take up any career. Yeah, Toshal, go ahead.
Thank you, Kriti and Rachel. I guess you guys covered a lot of great points, and I agree with all of them. Frankly, a cutthroat environment is everywhere. It's in finance, it's in tech, it's everywhere. So don't worry about the environment being cutthroat or not. Just focus on yourself and focus on your growth, I would say. And the other thing is what kind of things that you look at while you're pursuing an IT career, first thing, whenever you buy a book, you look at the back of the book, right? You read the little paragraph, you see if, okay, the story is something that you're interested in or not. Same as with your career. This is my personal opinion, and I always make decisions this way. I'll do a little bit of research. I see what is this something that's like actually exciting me or not, because you're going to be doing this for the majority of your time. So even though it's like a 9-hour job, if you combine the hours that you'll be working throughout your work life, it's going to be a lot. So do you want to spend time because of some factors like pay or something, or do you want to spend really good time to actually make yourself better or grow in what you actually like? So it's really important that you research a little bit before you step into this industry. And when you step into the industry, you'll have so many options that you want to explore. Tech industry, you can, if you like designing, you can go into UI UX, as Kriti mentioned earlier. If you like finance, there is finance and business. You can actually go tech plus finance and business degrees as well. Then you can like pursue careers like data science, data analytics, business intelligence, etc. So you have a lot of opportunities out there. Definitely tech career, having a career in tech is good in that way, but also see how it actually helps you grow. Like, is it something that you really like to do? So I guess that's it for me.
I'd just like to add another point. Like 3 of us have mentioned, don't look at pay as a deciding factor. But that being said, also don't cut yourself too short. If you know you're talented and if you have something to show for it, then it's good to demand what you think you deserve. But in the beginning of your career, it really does pay to be humble, and it pays to actually see if that industry is interested in your growth, if that particular company is interested in your growth. So don't cut yourself too short as well, but don't just decide something based on pay as well.
All right, thank you to all 3 speakers. I think we covered quite a few factors, and I quite like that you all shared how we should focus on growth and not use pay as a deciding factor. I think those are very wise points. Okay, let me stop share and go back to the slides really quickly. Okay, for the next keynote discussion, it is what are the different strengths of people in the following roles? Data scientist, quality assurance lead, and product manager, because these 3 are what each of the panelists are, like the different roles. So maybe we could start off with Rachel. You want to share about your role?
Yeah. Okay, so it's like for me, I used to do QA for a short while before I pivoted to go into product management. For me is so my journey was that after I left the banking industry, I took a coding bootcamp for web development, and then I joined QA, and after I went to product management. So for me is, I think being a product manager is sort of like a slightly more mid-level kind of career. Why do I say so? It's because you need to, as a product manager, you are managing the development of a product or a feature of a product. And when you're doing this, you have to be able to not just see the trees and analyze the trees in the forest, but also to be able to see the forest as it is. So you need to be able to see not just the small moving parts that make up the feature of the product that you're managing, but also you have to be able to zoom out and see how does your what the software engineers, the designers are working on this product feature, how does this impact the work of, say, the colleagues who are working in sales, who are working in customer service? How does it impact the upper management who is managing the company as a whole? How does this impact the customers? How does this impact other what we call stakeholders? So stakeholders refer to people or groups of people who are impacted one way or another by the portfolio managing. So as a product manager, you need to be able to interact and understand the different departments and the different groups of stakeholders that are impacted by the product feature you're managing. And I think empathy being empathy with like different people, I think being able to have a flexible kind of view, but also stakeholder management. So it's like managing people's expectations, even though different people will have like, they want different things from the same like product.
Thank you very much, Rachel, for sharing about maybe some strengths for product managers. Maybe we can have next Kriti to share about quality assurance lead.
Sure, thanks. First, I'd like to talk a little bit about lead, and being a lead or being a manager, like Rachel mentioned, is not really about, it's about like managing different stakeholders, empathy. It's not really about bossing people over. It's not like, oh, just because you're the lead, you can tell people what to do. It's the complete opposite. You have to maintain the communication and the needs and of different stakeholders. So you have the people that are affected by the product that are sponsoring your project. Like Rachel mentioned, it could be your boss, it could be any other higher ups who are directly affected by the product. There's also the people who are actually doing the work for you, your team. So it's very important to learn how you can sort of get those two to align together, and it's not always very easy. So yes, empathy, whenever it comes to lead or managing something, empathy plays a huge part. But then coming into quality assurance as such, so quality assurance is actually all about, seeing how things would work. Let's say you see a new product, okay? And it's about your inquisitiveness about, oh, how does it work? So generally, there are some people, let's say you have a table to set up, right? You get something from IKEA, you have to set it up, and there's a manual given to you, these are the steps that you follow. But what if you're the curious kind and you're like, I don't want to follow the manual, let me see if I can set it up on my own. And so quality assurance actually deals with verifying your product in a way that is different from how you would normally do it. Right? So let's say, so I work in printer, so I can just take the printer example. So, when we sell our printers, we have like a sort of a setup manual given, but we know how lazy people are and most of them just don't follow it. So what my team does is we deal with like, okay, if these are the steps, and if what if the customer directly skips to like the third or the fourth steps, how does our product work? So quality assurance, I would say, is really about you being very inquisitive, you being very curious, and you wanting to see outside of the box, like quite literally. Like, what if I press this instead of this? How is it going to work then? So it's just thinking about all of these things.
Okay, thank you, Kriti, for sharing about what strengths are needed for quality assurance lead. Lastly, could we have Toshal to share about maybe the strengths needed for data scientists?
So for data scientists, sorry. So data scientists are actually a very broad term today in the industry. A lot of data scientists works in different departments, and data scientists would work with different teams, right? So for example, in a product company like Grab, a data scientist would be answering questions like, how should I define the algorithm for search pricing? So you see how Grab actually increases the prices at night when there are lesser drivers, and then the prices are okayish when it's work hours and like nobody is actually booking the cabs. So what I just mentioned are some of the very basic factors that affect the pricing of whatever a Grab taxi you're booking. But there are a lot of other factors that go into that. So this is how like a data scientist would take in the data that they are collecting and would try to derive some insights from the data and predict what what other information or what business problem can be answered using this data. So I just gave an example for a product company, but there are other companies as well which look at their business propositions based on the past data. For example, what their budget should be, for example, and how based on the past data, like whatever goods went out or goods came in, etc., however many items were sold, how they should plan out the next few quarters of the business. So data scientists work closely with business people as well. So answering business questions and deriving insights from data is what the data scientists do. So basically, you need good coding skills. I would not deny that. You need to have like good logical reasoning. You also have to be creative and innovative in your solutions, because you'll have plenty of tools out there to answer your question, but which one works faster and which one works more efficient? So this is what data scientists would look into. And at last, you need good communication skills, because you will be explaining your solutions to different stakeholders or different people, business people who might not have a technical background, but you want to be able to bring down the problem to a simple solution and explain the solution to them. So these are the different kinds of skills that you will be developing in the next few years of your career if you want to pursue data science.
Thank you to Rachel, Kriti, and Toshal for sharing about these 3 different roles. I think we can see that just from these 3 roles that the roles in IT industry can be quite diverse and need different strengths. So it's not just I think people very diverse people can do different roles in the IT industry. Yeah. All right. That is the end of the keynote discussion. Now we have the Q&A, which I'll pass on to Jessie.
Okay, so for the Q&A segment, because we have collated questions from the participants already, so if you have any questions after hearing the speakers talk, y'all can put it in the Mentimeter. We won't be live updating them on the slides, but the speakers might be answering your questions after the webinar, and we'll send the responses over to y'all. So yeah, you can scan the QR code if you need. Okay. Okay, next slide also. Mandy, next slide. Okay, so these are the general questions from the participants, but we will encourage y'all to speak up. Like y'all can unmute yourselves and speak. If no one else asks the questions, then we will take it from the slides. Yeah.
Well, I think just now at the start, was it Wenhui that asked a question that we said we can take to the general Q&A, like answer it then?
I remember the question. So she was asking about like, please correct me if I'm wrong, Wenhui. It's a question about having support for women when you're joining the tech industry, right?
Yeah, exactly. Thank you.
Okay, so today you're exactly right. It is in fact a male-dominated industry, but I wouldn't say anymore. There are a lot of women who are joining this industry, and there are a lot of groups, for example, Women Who Code, and we form a support for women who are pursuing tech careers. So this is like, you could find out different groups that are out there, tech ladies, women in tech, Women Who Code, etc. These communities, joining these communities as a member, you basically are networking with different people who have been through the same path as you have, or like similar path. Talking to them, you can gain insights. You can find personal mentors there if there are no mentorship sessions out there. But in general, it might be a little scary at first. You might feel that, okay, there are no women around me in my company, but don't worry, there is a huge community out there who is ready to help you, who is actually there to answer all your questions and encourage you to take up whatever things that you want to take up. So joining as a member does not mean like you have to spend a lot of time there, but it's just for your growth and your you finding your paths and your footing. So don't worry about that. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, it does. Thank you.
I'd like, yeah, another thing to add on to that. That is true that, you know, it's a male-dominated society, even in the tech area. And all my managers so far have actually been male. Just, you know, I was just thinking about this when you asked the question, and I'm like, yeah, you know, all my managers have been male, even though I have a lot of females working around me. But one thing I'd say is that, you know, sometimes it might be a little difficult. Not all of us have faced this, but sometimes you might face this, that, you know, you're not being taken seriously because you're a woman. You know, you're explaining something and you feel like you're not being heard. But yeah, like Toshal said, don't feel bad. Like we deserve the same respect, and we will command the same respect. So wherever you are, whichever field, just don't worry about that. Like just push your elbows out and be there and make some space for yourself. Yeah.
Okay, so I think in response to this point, right, I think many of us have this concern about being in an environment where it's male dominated. So can any of y'all share, or maybe Rachel, since you haven't spoken yet, like do you have any general advice of how we should deal with or like interact with men in like the tech industry?
I think, right. Okay, it's like for me, I have had one female supervisor in my tech career so far. And I think for her, I really admire her. She was very good at her job. Now, this was when I was doing QA at SP Digital. So I had a female supervisor, and she was really intelligent. She was also very caring. And I think I know being in a male-dominated industry, there's nothing wrong with it. Of course, it would be ideal is that we have like a 50-50 ratio of like male to female in the industry. But I think what I do observe is that there are a lot more women who are entering the industry in junior roles, which is great. I think where we do need to have some progress in is the number of women who do rise up the ranks and go to like more mid-level, the senior executives, or like who are technical founders of like tech startups. And I think those are some gaps in the industry that we do hope to fill. So I think one thing about like that is good is to seek a good mentor or seek a good like support group. So female-centric groups like Women Who Code. There's also Tech Ladies in Singapore, and I think there's like Girls in Tech as well. These are all very good support groups where you can share issues that are not just general for the industry, but it's also very specific that we face as women in the industry. Because as Toshal and Kriti have mentioned, sometimes in male-dominated industry, the guys won't take you seriously because you're women. But I think increasingly there are more and more male allies in the industry, and I think that is a very encouraging sign. When I say allies, they mean that they may not be the same like gender as you, but they are very supportive of your growth and your journey in the industry. And I think sometimes if people do not take you seriously as a woman, it is good to have an ally who is able to provide some weight, and they're able to sort of advocate for you and say, and help to dispel some notions. And unfortunately, the reality is there's some guys who will not listen to you, but they will listen to another guy saying the same thing. So sometimes unfortunately, you do need to have that kind of support. But I really look forward to the day that we don't need to have an ally because of this.
Okay, thank you, Rachel, for the insight. I think you provided us some very interesting observations also. I think in similar veins, another very popular question amongst the audience is, do you have good work-life balance? And I think especially since women have to juggle like household chores and familiar duties, how much of work-life balance can you guys have? Maybe any speakers can take this first.
I'd like to go first, if that's okay. So it's actually, I'd like to vouch for some male members here. I have a lot of friends who also juggle a lot of responsibilities, as not just as a woman, but okay. So the thing is, having a good work-life balance, everyone's been focusing on this for so long, and people have defined like how you can have a good work-life balance, but it really depends on you. If you enjoy your work, maybe that's actually a good thing, but don't overwork yourself for like 16 hours a day, which you sometimes end up doing if you work in a startup. And for me, it's been a thin line, I guess. It's a very thin line where you see that, okay, this is where I need to stop and look after myself. And for looking after myself, what do I enjoy? So that's how you can create a work-life balance. Don't probably go thinking about the norm, like just okay, I need to have a work-life balance, I need to meditate. Yes, meditation is good, but if you don't enjoy it, do something else to replace that. Have a good physical activity in your day or in your week. Include some of the other things. So it's difficult. It gets difficult when there are different phases in the company. You might be busy, you might be working a lot, but do take out some me time or a me day for yourself where you do just the things that you like.
I think I can go next. So work-life balance, I think it's like kind of like how there's no one true definition of success that's applicable to everyone. I think work-life balance is also something that is not 100% applicable to everyone as well. So I think work-life balance for yourself is something that you have to define. If you have a job that you enjoy and like you get a lot of satisfaction and enjoy from like doing a job, then maybe you might say, I don't mind working a bit more because I enjoy the work I'm doing and it's something that makes me happy, and so probably can do that. I think like for but there are some people who say, I see this job as a way to make money so that I can fund my life outside of work. And they may say, okay, I just want to find a job that is really, I can leave at like 6 p.m. on the dot and then I don't have to worry about work. There are people who choose that. And I think there is no real definite yes or no answer to whether it's good to have a work-life balance. I think in the tech industry, different companies will have different work cultures that will focus on different things. So I also see on the slides, there's one about cultural differences. So yes, if you're working, every company has a different work culture. Some of them would be influenced by like the places where the upper management is from. So those, like what I noticed is that for management that comes from Europe, they tend to be a bit more chill, but during the day, the work hours are very intense. And there are some others like a bit more like Asian cultures. Some of them are okay with like working longer hours. There are also like some that are also learning to say that, okay, we will like not continue past a certain time, but there will be seasons in the job where you will likely have to put in more hours because it's like peak season, and that's kind of unavoidable. So I think my advice is to be open to in the start of your career to like the kind of company you join, the kind of hours you want to put in, and then it's like as you continue to work, you just try to adjust, and understand what works for you.
Okay, I think since we're running short of time, maybe Kriti would like to quickly add something, if you have any.
Sure. Actually, most of the points have already been covered by Toshal and Rachel. Yes, it really matters which company you work for. So like I said before, taking up any offer, try to know a bit more about their culture. It's very important that your cultures should match with theirs. And again, in the beginning of your career, yes, I would say don't be really strict on the 9 to 5 and the 9 to 6 kind of thing, but also don't just take up any work that you take up just to please your manager. Don't overburden yourself as well, because you'll for sure have a burnout no matter how much you love your job. If you don't try to keep a little bit of balance, you'll just have a burnout. And that's not good, because when you have a burnout, then you just not feel like going to work at all for a couple of days. So yeah, just try to maintain that balance. And I guess it's best if you define that for yourself instead of somebody else deciding that for you.
Okay, thank you all the speakers for the very interesting insights. Unfortunately, due to time constraint, we have to move on to the speaker-specific questions. So these are also questions that the participants have filled in beforehand. Mandy, next slide. Yeah, okay. So I think each speaker will be given 5 minutes to answer as much as they want to cover. Okay, so we'll start with Toshal first. So your 5 minutes begin now.
Thanks, Jessie. So the first question is, how has the experience of going abroad to work, that is coming to Singapore, impacted your career? So I would like to say that Singapore has a lot of opportunities. For me personally, it was a playground where I could try out different things that I was interested in, and I could pivot until I found the thing that I was super interested in. So I started off with doing some data analytics, understanding how a data analyst works or a data scientist works, and I pivoted a little bit more into going deeper into the tech side of it, learning more of machine learning, deep learning. And finally, I landed with a computer vision career. So right now, I think that definitely coming to Singapore, I actually started as a research assistant at NUS. So that's something that has benefited me personally, because I could work with different professors, and it gave me enough flexibility to change and pivot my field of interest as I was actually finding out what I like more. So it's good to try out different things. And one plus point that I would say moving away from home was that you become really self-dependent and independent. So you are managing everything from your finances, your food, time, energy, and everything. So when you're managing these things by yourself, you're actually increasing your confidence in yourself, and you're gaining this control on your life. By this, you're actually becoming brave enough to make career decisions for yourself, which you think are good for you and not for the family, or not exactly for the family. I shouldn't be saying that. I mean, they're not making decisions because someone else has pushed you to do that. So gaining that confidence is really important. And one of the things that moving away from home that I realize is important. Singapore in general provides you a lot of opportunities wherever you are today. Actually, remote work has a lot of impact today. So you can work sitting anywhere in the world and working for a company anywhere in the world. So that's a good thing. What are the, let's go on to the second question. What are the factors you considered while deciding to pursue masters, and how useful do you find having a master's in tech industry, remuneration skills, etc.? Okay, this advice that I really give to all the people who ask me is only pursue masters if you feel that you need a higher education. So once you're done with your undergrad, this is my personal opinion. Once you are done with your undergrad, if you feel that you really need to specialize in something, you need to gain more skills in a certain way, in a certain field, and you cannot do that while you're pursuing different courses online, and you need a professional or a formal education, then yes, you should be pursuing masters. And these are the thoughts that I put into before I selected my master's degree as well, like which degree to select. Sometimes it does matter if you have a master's degree in the tech industry. You might, some companies do mention that they prefer a master's degree, but I've also seen a lot of job description which says a bachelor or a master's. but you need to have the required skills for the job. So as long as you're developing your skills, you shouldn't worry about if you have a degree or not. Pursuing a degree is entirely on you and it's your choice, but having the skills for the job, that's what is really important. And regarding remuneration, I think it's sometimes it makes a difference. It depends a lot on the company. I guess that's it for me. Thanks.
Okay. Thank you so much, Toshal, for keeping to the time. So I think we'll move on to the next speaker, Kriti. Okay. So same thing, Kriti, you will have 5 minutes and you can answer as much as you can.
Okay, so talking about does QA need technical knowledge? It depends on which field you're going into. So I can talk about, I work for HP printers. So I really don't have a lot of technical knowledge about the software that's actually written. But because I have a background in computers, it's easier to understand things. But again, QA doesn't necessarily need technical knowledge because you're mostly just trying to think out of the box. But again, the kind of QA that I'm involved in is more customer oriented. But yes, there are some QAs where you need to write some technical codes to see, if you have these conditions, does your code work or not? So again, QA is also quite broad. If you are looking into the coding field, then yes, QA will need some technical knowledge. You should be able to write some set of code. The coding language may be different, but yes. But there's also other QA leads where you do not need to know a lot of technical stuff and you will learn on the job. And how has the experience of coming to Singapore impacted my career? So it's quite similar to what Toshal said. For me also, when I came here, there was a vast number of opportunities available for me to choose from. And that's another thing I'd like you guys to remember. It's not necessary that what you study, you work in, because sometimes you study things because you have an interest, or maybe you don't, but you just study that anyways. But then you go into a working career and you're like, you know what, maybe this isn't that exciting to me. Always be open to experimenting. And that's how it's worked out for me as well. So I never really thought that I want to get into QA or into a project management or program management. I was a software developer. Then I worked as a network engineer, and then I got this opportunity. So I was like, why not? So it's okay if you're not really sure about what you want to do. So Singapore was that gave me that experience. So to me, yes, it has really impacted my career. And I really also I kind of like the work culture here. They are very open to giving responsibilities to you if they know that you're capable. So my company here did not see that I don't really have a lot of experience in QA or anything like that. Just during the interview process, they felt something and they realized, this person can be given this responsibility. So for me, that was really amazing. So for me, Singapore has impacted my career in a lot of amazing ways. And educational experience in India compared to Singapore is vastly different. I did my bachelor's in India, and I did my master's in Singapore. It was very, very different because in India there is still a lot of hand holding, and you have a set of curriculums and the same set of tests and projects and all of that. But coming to Singapore, it's very independent. You are responsible for your own learning. Even the master's course in NUS, even though it's structured, but you have choices of what courses you want to take, what's the pace you want to do your courses at. And within that also, they have specializations. So I'm in electrical engineering broadly, but I had the option to choose to computer. And for my course, we could just choose it anytime we want. So it's very flexible that way. So it was amazing to experience that. It was very different. So it was a little bit of a change, but yeah, it gave me a lot of time management, especially learned a lot of time management through that. But yeah, I guess that's it from me.
Okay, thank you so much, Kriti. Next, we'll move on to Rachel. I think Rachel's background is slightly more interesting. So yeah, Rachel, your time starts now.
Okay, well, that's a lot of questions. Okay, I'll try to keep it brief. So the first question is, has studying a banking degree helped you in the job or working in the IT industry now? So I think for when I was working in like when I studied banking finance, everything's very theoretical. And something that I learned is that in formal education, the curriculum may not always be the most up to date. And may not always be like the most relevant to what's in the industry now. So I think if you, whatever you study in school, if they say that, oh, it is like this in the industry, take it with a pinch of salt. Like, you know, and I think if you want to have something that's a lot more relevant, go and speak with people already working in the industry. They'll be able to give you a lot more relevant advice, and you know, and their experience will be the most relevant because they have been working and they are immersed in the industry, so they will know. I think, does it help my job in tech? I would say yes and no. So in a way, yes, it's because it helped me with some sort of like contextual knowledge. So an example is I have worked on some internal systems that had to deal with like a payment processing software that we had to integrate. And so for me, having the banking degree helped me to understand some of the more technical terms that were in the documentation for the integration of this payment processing platform and at the point in time, the company's platform. So I was able to advise the engineers. I know like what's the definition of these terms, especially because the engineering team I was working with, English is not their first language. So, oh yes, another thing I probably should mention is that in the IT industry, there's a chance that you may work with people who are not based in the same country as you. And that is like quite normal in the tech industry. So it's something that cross-cultural understanding cooperation is very important. And so, so yeah, I think, but in terms of like, it helps with like the soft skills as well, like communication, teamwork, and empathy for the IT industry. So which brings me to the second question: what's experience in changing career paths, and what factors did you consider in your decision? So what happened was that I worked after I graduated from university and polytechnic. I went to work in the banking finance industry for 2+ years. And when I was there, I spoke with a lot of different people, but I was also observing the like trends in the economy. So what happened at the time was that fintech was on the rise, but in the banking industry, I noticed a lot of the banks were a bit more resistant to change. And at a point in time, I had the gut feel that fintech and like tech moving to different industries was going to be the future. And so maybe for context, this was in the mid-2010s when that happened. And so that's around like 2015, 2016 when this happened. And for me, I decided to leave. There were a lot of push factors or pull factors, but one of the pull factors was that I knew that tech was going to be a big part of every industry, every other industry, and I wanted to be part of that. So it's like, if you can't beat them, join them. So I then moved to doing a coding bootcamp. So coding bootcamp is like a short, it's like a short intensive course where you are learned more practical hands-on skills. So you do a lot more. So in the coding bootcamp I went for, I learned different web frameworks, and then I built projects, and these were used as my portfolio when I then applied for jobs. So and I think for this, I wasn't driven by pay. I was driven very much by what I was interested in, what was the trends in the industry. And it was a huge struggle at the start because I had to start from scratch. But I think it was ultimately worth it when I did pivot to this industry, because I became a lot happier working in the tech industry as opposed to the banking finance industry. And so from there, subsequently when I changed from quality assurance to product management, it's because I spoke with different people. I understood what the roles were, what the day-to-day job was. And then I realized that my strengths were a lot more tied to what product managers did, because I enjoyed talking with a lot of people. I enjoyed understanding the different moving parts of a company, of the product. And so by speaking with people, I then said, okay, so it kind of ties into the third question: what efforts have you made to become a good project manager? So what I did was I actually understudied the product owner I was working under when I was doing quality assurance work. So I had my main roles as a quality assurance, and I was writing automated tests. But on the side, maybe about 25% of my working time, I kind of shadowed under the product owner who was managing the product that I was working on. I went to go with them. I spoke with different stakeholders. I tried to I sat in meetings and I observed how the meetings went. I observed what the product owner was doing. And I worked with the UX designer who was on the same team. They said, okay, let us go and try to design the user journey of this new feature that product owner was trying to build. So it was very interesting. For me, it was a bit like having a mini internship in my full-time job. And this one is something that is not like it's given to me, it's more I had to ask. So another important thing is that do not be afraid to ask, because if people are not there's a chance people will say no and they will reject you. It's fine. Rejection is going to be everywhere. Failure is going to be everywhere. But I think when there's a chance for people to say no, there's also a chance for people to say yes. And I think that, if you focus on the chance that people are going to say yes, and you do not give up on that, I think that's going to help you to drive your career forward. And for me, it's not just that. I think being very flexible in the way you think and not having a fixed view on how things are is very important. And it's mentioned earlier, I think, by the three of us, being agile in terms of the way you work, the kind of skills that you learn is going to be very crucial. And I think for me, going into product management, I realized it cannot be your first job. I know a lot of people, a lot of students to say that like a product manager, project manager sounds cool. I want to go into that. So I think what I noticed is that it is better if you work in something else and then you move into product and project management. Why do I say so? Because a product and project management is a more high-level job. And if you want to have a proper understanding of how it works, it's easier if you have a lot more empathy and understanding of what the individual types of roles that make up the product or the project, what do they do? And in order for you to, and you won't be able to have that understanding when you are a fresh grad and you just join the industry. You're not going to have the kind of empathy and understanding. It's still better that you put in some time and you work in another role. So it can be either as software engineer, data scientist, UX designer, sometimes or QA, or if let's say you're in a company, you may work in a completely different function. So I have heard of product managers, project managers who used to be in sales or business development. Some have used to be in marketing. Some have used to be in customer service. And then when they become product managers or project managers, they work on a portfolio that is a lot close to what they were doing in the previous role. So example, like someone who used to do marketing may work on a portfolio that is a lot closer to marketing, like engagement or retention, or like how do you have how do you get people to go onto like a platform that allows people to sign up for something. So someone who is marketing oriented might be suited to manage that kind of portfolio. But I think, yeah, ultimately, right, just as what was mentioned, experiment with your career. You're young, you have a lot of time. Focus on doing that. When you find out what you enjoy, what you are good at, then you can start taking up the right courses or like masters or whatever to progress towards that.
Okay, thank you so much, Rachel, for the project manager specific wise words. I think we all learned a lot from that. Okay, I think since there were some new participants who joined, we will open up the ground to anyone who has any last questions? If there aren't any other questions, I will hand the time over to Mandy.
If anyone has questions, just feel free to unmute and say, yeah. Because the
Like, you
mention
can put it in the chat as well.
Yeah, I think the chat. Okay. See, let me. If no one has questions, the last thing you have to do is just group photo. So could I request everyone to oh, there's a question. Okay, one has a question. Which is, given the global intense competition in tech, how do you think that the current market will change? If any of the speakers want to quickly address this. Meanwhile, could I request everyone to on their camera so we can take a group photo?
Sure. Do we take the question after the photo?
I think you can take the question now because we're waiting for people to on the cameras. Usually it'll take a few minutes.
All right. That's actually a very a big and a deep question. As you can see, the three of us are like wondering what to say about this. It is intense, as we had discussed earlier, and how we think the market will change. Honestly, I think we're going to grow. The tech industry is going to grow. We see tech everywhere now. Maybe 10, 15 years ago, we wouldn't even think of shopping online, right? And even when e-commerce was introduced, a lot of us had reservations about shopping online. But look at us now. I don't think any of us can live without shopping online or ordering food online or taxis online. So even though there is intense competition, I think there's a place for everyone. And to me, I think it's going to grow. So if you're thinking about if this is all a bubble and it just might crash soon, I don't think so.
I kind of agree with Kriti. And also there are new problems coming up and there are new solutions coming up. So there is opportunity for everyone who's interested to hop on this bandwagon. But yeah, just keep your mind open to whatever might come, and you don't know what you might like next. Today this is trending, tomorrow something else. So just keep your mind open.
And we've spoken mostly about real world product and solutions so far, but there's so much about metaverse coming in. I won't even begin to talk about that. So yeah, I think there's a lot coming in.
Okay.
Yeah,
Sorry,
okay.
Rachel, go ahead.
No worries. Yeah, so I think Kriti and Toshal have brought up very excellent points. I think that the tech industry is only going to keep growing, and maybe it's not going to be software as we know it now. But the thing is that it's very hard to tell what the trends will be going forward. But I do think that there is going to be a lot of emphasis on privacy, a lot more emphasis on ethics and security, and also I think the adoption of new technologies. So I think the current market is, I think it's going to be rapidly changing. I think a lot more people are going to have an emphasis on the more I guess human side of tech, and I guess the integration of even more integration of our daily lives in tech. And I think it's going to move in that direction, but to be honest, I think no one can truly see 10 years, even 5 years ahead. It's I think a lot of us couldn't have imagined how COVID-19, right, has made everyone adopt tech a lot faster than expected. And I think it's and I'm pretty sure COVID-19 is not going to be the only thing that's going to cause a major shift in society as we know it. So yeah.
Okay, thank you, Rachel, Kriti, and Toshal for answering the question.